G'day everyone. Proud to say Barkarati is brought to you by Radix Nutrition, makers of the most technically comprehensive nutrition products that have ever existed. Unlock your potential with Radix. G'day listeners. Welcome to Barkarati, the sailing podcast. My name's Jordan Spencer and it's that time of the week where we get to hang out with some really cool sailors. But of course, I have to share the mic with my two idiot mates. So first off, let's welcome Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, Exalted One.
BP.
Well, of course, it's happy birthday to one Jordan Spencer this week.
Yes.
Obviously, just throws the wrench into the system and just totally ruins our timing.
I specifically checked that they had internet and get there and it was internet from 1984. So it just didn't work. It didn't work.
Well, happy birthday to you anyway,
thanks.
mate.
Yeah, cheers. And my phone wouldn't bloody pair or anything, so it was just it was a nightmare. It was not the reason for that is because it was a hidden away little remote spot, and that means that was good. I like that. Thanks for the kind sentiment though, BP. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's bring in the other bloke.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
No crickets. It's Mr. Nick Bice.
Oh, no crickets. Good to be back,
crickets.
man. I tell you, I've missed a little Barkarati catch-up, but just
banter.
due to the nature of the job, just the timings just didn't work for us, I'm afraid.
Well, we did say off air, didn't we? It was a fairly monotonous 24 days for you.
Apologies to the listeners. I know you really wanted the Wolverine back, but it's like ships through the night, isn't it? I'm back in Oz now.
Yep.
BP, you're in where are you? San Diego?
San Francisco.
Oh, San Fran.
Yeah.
And Jordan, you're at home. Awesome.
And it
No,
changes
well,
You're the
this
big
week.
mover. You're the big mover of us.
next week, aren't we all overseas next week?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. We're all
That was
overseas.
us. So as you say just then, it's like you're in Oz, Jay. You're in Oz still at the moment, but you're about to go to Japan. I fly to UK tomorrow, so it's just
And I'll be
chop and
back in Barcelona next week.
change. Barcelona next week. So it's just incredible for us.
But I've got to tell you, boys, the last few weeks, so many things, stories, anecdotes, Barkarati-isms, all those sorts of things. So
Well, your fingers on the pulse, Bryce. Have you got anything to share?
no, I'm
with us?
just trying to think. I mean, it'll be a whole show just catching up on everything. So maybe I can, over the next few weeks, I can just give us one little topic per week that we can talk about. I'll let you choose the topic this week before we, of course, get to our guests. Barkarati, we've got a branding issue.
Yes,
So that's one
are
issue to talk about.
absolutely hopeless. We know that.
You can choose the topic to talk about. The other one was recently there's been an article published in the latest Seahorse called "Where Have All the Men Gone?" Specifically about the Duralia race and about inshore boats and Mediterranean, and it was windy and blah blah blah. But I'm going to switch that up to "Where Have All the Young Colts Gone?"
The Colts.
That are joining all these. Well, it starts with a C.
It ends with an
S. And then, of course, there's a who's hot, who's not. We can probably keep who's hot, who's not. Probably keep that for hot time. With some regatta reports, but also the sun shirts, which we've done fuck all about since we banged on about it for some time. So, do you want one quick topic?
Sure.
Branding issue?
Yeah.
Right. So, you know our logo, men.
Mm-hmm.
We got the nosedive
Yeah.
of the Silk 2 in whatever.
1990 something.
Late 90s in the on the
House.
Solent, doing the
Yep.
massive nosedive. Godfather of the show, Gordon Maguire,
Yeah.
standing at the back of the boat. Anyway, as it turns out, sailing on Maximus during the Ibiza Joy Sail with a cast of thousands, one of the crew members aboard was actually on the boat as well.
Oh,
He was actually running the boat.
Right.
And we were talking about Barkarati, and he said to me, "Look, I think we've got a bit of an issue." Do tell, my friend, I say. Well, that issue being that the owner of Silk 2 has come at us with basically the fact that we're using his image, which he claims as his own. I said the lawyers can sort the shit out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, anyway.
Which he claims as his own.
Yeah.
That we are going to have a copyright issue on our hands within the short term.
That's all right.
Awesome.
We can resolve that.
Look forward to it.
Well, basically, I told him to shove it up his ass and you're off the boat.
I thought the image was owned by Becking of Cows. Isn't that a Becking of Cows photo?
Well, no. Who owns images? That's what I.
It's in the public domain. It's been over 100 years. It's a century ago.
Oh, you'd say that. So we've actually, myself and Jono Russell, Jono's his name. We've had quite a bit of banter about it. Just some really good banter. And as I explained to him, my first Hobart '97, I'm in Sydney. A new type, country kid in the big smoke, gone into Sturrock's ship Chandler's there down at Rushcutters Bay.
Yep.
And I see that actual photo on the wall and I'm like, that I've got to buy that. And I brought it straight away.
Oh,
I've
wow.
barely got fucking $28 to rub together, not to mention buying this particular print, of which is still on the wall at my mum and dad's house.
Oh, I love it. I didn't know that.
So anyway, I gave him, the passion, the love of that particular image. And he said he was going to get his people to speak to their people, our people, that we're going to do lunch, and hopefully it'll just blow over.
I think so.
Well, the response, one of the responses, of course, is that they're not the only boat that nosedives. And so...
Which is a hot topic in today's discussion.
which opens up the
Absolutely.
door. So one of the great all-time modern versions of that we saw just in the Youth America's Cup, boys.
We did.
We did. And, we saw wind instruments flying off in one direction, goggle lenses going off in another direction.
Goggle lenses.
It was a classic. And we did, we're obviously focused in on the Cup at the moment. And, with the Youth Cup having just been completed and the Women's Cup going on outside of the main Cup, we thought, let's go on board and actually get really into it, because there's plenty of people are big fans of it. So we're very tight with the Andoo America's Cup team, Australian Cup team. So we just said, can we have a chat to a couple of the lads after they've had their adventure? And so we've reached out and we've got Cole Tapper and Max Paul as our guests today. So Cole is... Australian national champion in 420s, does a bit of cat racing, is the number one ranked youth match racing skipper in the world, currently ranked 9th in the Opens. Max, of course, is he's a multiple Australian champion in the 29ers. He's right up there in the worlds, and I think he's third ranked or something in the 49er class at the moment. Or he's been doing quite well in the 49er class. Comes from a very famous family, and we've had his mum on the show a bit, and she may end up being president of World Sailing if everything keeps going the way it's going. So it's a pretty important little couple of people that we've got on the show, and we're very happy to have them. So welcome to Barkarati, Cole and Max. All right, Max and Cole, welcome to Barkarati, boys. It's good to have you.
All right, thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just before we start, gents, it is 0700 in Barcelona.
Yeah.
You can probably, it's a bit after, see it on that clock behind me. But there's not many people up at this time in Barcelona. You just need to check in with the boys. Have you had a few hours sleep, or you're all rested? You're an athlete, you're professionals. What's the status?
Yeah, we're on the Barcelona, Spain time zone now. After we finished racing, we decided to run the sort of 10 till 10 a.m. wake up. So it's about 4 a.m. Sydney time right now here, because it's 7 a.m. Barcelona time. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I was walking along the street with my laptop, and I tell you, it was a dark alleyway, and I was not too confident about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Rolex laptop. chain to your
No,
wrist, was
it's
it?
2017, something that doesn't run. So good luck to
Yeah,
anyone.
good luck opening it. Let us know when you get it open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. How you doing, boys? Like we watched in interest. We saw you. You know, like it was really, really interesting watching the racing. One, we love the boats. Two, you did our heads in a few times. But three, you know, like you did pretty bloody good. How do you guys feel?
Maxi.
Yeah, well, we had a bit of a roller coaster ride, that's for sure. It was some big highs and some not as good lows, but yeah, it's pretty exciting to be honest. Like, you know, the result was the result. We didn't really know what the result was going to be coming into it because we hadn't had any time on the boats. So we had a really good rip at, you know, doing our best and learning every day. And, you know, I think we're all pretty happy with how we went, but it was just an awesome experience to race these boats.
It's absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that you know, you look at the results and it's definitely favoured to those who had time in the boats, but you know, all of the teams who were in the in Group B, just, you know, majority of them were still learning to sail, but you guys were damn fast, man.
Yeah, we were pretty quick. That was a good thing, but we just struggled to turn the corners, especially on the wavy days. As I'm sure everyone saw, we seemed to launch the boat out of the water every jibe we attempted on day two. So,
Mate, some epic crashes. One, of course, being the massive nosedive.
Oh,
You got the big tail whip with the rudder just flapping in the breeze was pretty cool.
New logo. For
And which one of you lost your goggles, actually?
Yeah, that would be Fergo. Thankfully, when you're sitting on the leeward side, they don't show the camera shot of you getting submarined. So Fergo with that one.
wow.
well, it's actually very funny because you know, you've had one major nosedive and his goggles were off his face for the entire race. Imagine if he had another one, his eyes would be out the back of his helmet.
Yeah.
He was asking for some, like, does anyone have spare lenses or spare goggles? And I'm like, yep, I've got some, but I'm on the other side of the boat.
Good luck.
You should see them. They're stashed away here really comfortably.
Yeah.
Like when you like say something like that happens, like how much are you looking at instruments and stuff inside the boat that sort of are pretty critical for your sailing? Like if you do lose your lenses and you're a bit blind, how much is that an impact?
Well, to be honest, in that situation, it's not massive because we lost our wind instruments anyway. So that sort of got blown off. You can actually see it in the video as we come back out of the water. The jib just like flicks across the boat and the wind gear is sitting on the foredeck and just gets whipped out into the water. And yeah, so from there, they just lock your true wind based on like the course and the readings on the course. So it's not that helpful to look at. And so there's a bit less to look at on the screens and you just sort of exit all your maneuvers, you know, like you would on any other boat, just more feel.
That's yeah, good. That's a good point. It's like you know, back to feel. Did you feel like that changed or taught you a bit more about the boat more, in a different way?
Yeah, we were lucky we had that scenario pop up.
You ended up third in that race, didn't you?
Yeah. At that point in that those conditions, if you could just get it around the track, you would finish well. And actually I think it was the only race we didn't have a major, so maybe it was
other than the one at the start.
So just remind the configuration of the boats as far as flight control, all that sort of stuff, how much input you guys can put into it. Where did that end up?
Yeah, so basically you got two drives and two trimmers, and the sail trimmers are just trimming the sails. So Tom and I would trim the jib and the main and alternate tack to tack, but the drivers have essentially the boat's flying on an autopilot, which sort of has a sensor at the front of the boat looking downwards, and it sort of predicts, and it can see it doesn't predict, it just sees the waves in front of the boat and adjusts the flaps accordingly, essentially on the foils. And what the drivers can do is they can sort of put in the parameters of the autopilot, so they can set the ride height essentially of the boat, the pitch of the boat with the rudders, and the cant angle of the foil, basically. Yeah. So essentially you're trying to set the boat up for, you know, whatever conditions it is, and you can sort of adjust it to be more forgiving in waves or in the flat water to really have it right on the edge. And yeah, so there's actually a lot of adjustment that goes into the foils, even though there's, even though it's kind of on autopilot. So, and find the right settings for the right days, particularly on those wavy days, was kind of difficult. So,
Yeah. You run out of range on the foil arms. The foil arms are quite a lot smaller than the 75s. And those boats weren't necessarily designed for Barcelona. They're just a one design class. So they got the limit of the wave height, basically, where you'd have as little foil as you could in the water that you needed, and then you'd still be, bashing through the wave in front of you. So that's what happens on those windy days, is you're forced to sail a lot looser than you would like to, because you need to get the boat high enough, the altitude high enough.
Loose and fast. I like it.
Yeah.
Loose and fast.
I just
Definitely made for some interesting watching, didn't it? It was pretty action packed.
And it's crazy watching some of it back. Like, we watched this Italian jibe where, they're fully in the sky through the middle of the jibe, but as long as you're sort of going fast enough and load the correct board as you go back into the water, you can come out of some of them, relatively unscathed, which is pretty cool.
I imagine the sensor was freaking out on that day too, when it was really rough. I reckon the sensor would have just gone, no, I'm going home.
Imagine all the boats at the end of the day just sit next to each other, and the sensor's just saying, fuck, that was a hard day, boys.
Off to the pub. Off they go.
Sensor pub.
Jesus Christ, I was driven by some wild dudes today.
It was interesting watching with the commentary. Ashby was really interesting when he was talking. One of your jibes particularly, he made a comment. I can't remember what it was, but he was just saying, I think you're a bit high or loose or something on the Traveller, and did Ashby try and come in, and did you actually have him, or who was coaching you?
We're coached by Harry Price. While here in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And he was, amazing. And then back in Sydney, we had help from Ewan McNichol and Victor Pyer well.
Copy.
Sorry.
No, you go.
We definitely watched back the broadcast and thanked Glenn for any tips that he littered into the broadcast. So that was something that we were using as coaching as well, I guess.
We got a free coach.
Not dissimilar to our mate in the E series, who got lots of tips from Glenn as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys caught on the coverage. Did you hear the response? I mentioned it, I think, a week or two ago when it happened. Ashby saying to Stephen, the lead commentator, did you pick up on that one where he said, "Stephen, I'm going to punch you in the head if you give the commentator's curse to the Aussies"? Did you pick up on that one?
Yeah, Nick was watching the broadcast and told us when we were coming in, and apparently it had been happening all day. They were like, every time they said we look good, we'd get to that bottom left corner and go through the jibe.
Exactly.
It would have been excruciating viewing, I suggest.
It was just one of the greatest commentary pieces I've ever seen. I'm going to punch you in the head if you continue with this. I just loved it. I loved it. How closely did the sim, because all your sailing beforehand was in the sim, how closely does it relate?
Oh, that's it's interesting, because the analogy I'd use, I think, is you wouldn't be able to sail the boat without the simulator, but being good at the simulator doesn't necessarily make you good at sailing the boat.
Oh, we're stuck.
So it's just like, it's hard to mimic the waves. I'd say it's probably the hardest part. Like, the waves are nothing like what you see in the simulator. Even when you can turn the waves on in the simulator and you get kind of the same feeling, but it's just nothing like being on the actual boat and, the boat launching through waves, spraying, putting the hull through a wave, getting, water in the cockpit, getting absolutely fire hose. So it's just not quite the same. And I think, as I said, like, the simulator was really good for us to practice the racing side and the comms loops and all that kind of thing that we just didn't get any time to practice, essentially.
Yeah.
But outside of that and learning where all the buttons and toggles are, the sensation is pretty good. If it was flat water all the time, it's relatively similar. But as soon as you get any wave state, it's sort of you're on your own trying to figure it out on the boat.
So that's kind of where the whole aim of the game, right? Get as dialed in as you can on the sim, get as and then you shouldn't deserve to win if you're a shit sailor. That's and if you're the best sailor kind of came out, the best team, and given the limited time on the water that you guys had compared to some of the others, it's sensational. You guys have definitely done yourselves proud, no doubt about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the best team definitely won. The Italians were pretty clinical, and
Yeah.
Marco had sailed already in Jeddah at an actual America's Cup event, so
Yeah.
that's it's pretty crazy that we were actually racing them.
Yeah.
And we've had 8 days in the boat, whatever we had. So
Did you associate with them at all? Was there any period of time you spent with those guys? Because those teams were obviously a lot more experienced than you guys. Did you get to sort of chew the fat with them a bit and try and get some knowledge from them?
Mainly with the Kiwis, actually, because the way the training worked, you had 4 days scheduled before the regatta.
Yep.
And you were partnered up with another country, essentially a cup team that you were sharing the boat with throughout the regatta.
Copy.
And because we raced on opposite days, and on the first day, when we got in the boat, we sailed a little bit with some of them as well.
Right.
Just while we're, for the first kind of session, and once you get through that hurdle, and they're kind of inclined to give you a few tips because they don't want you breaking their boat. So, you both need it working to be able to go racing. So that was kind of nice, actually. We learned quite a lot doing that.
It was,
And the Kiwis and Aussies, that's the best way to do it too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine swapping in and out with the Italians. You kind of got to put your suit on when you come down to the boat.
Yeah, they all had
massive glasses,
head to toe Prada, and the team kit's pretty slick, actually.
from a coaching perspective, when you look at your performance, it's pretty easy one to talk to because you guys had some really good things. You did really, really well, and then you did, like, for example, your starting. You had a lot of really, really good starts, right? So, and then you had a couple of really bad ones, but which is a good sign because it means you've got all that potential. So, from the amount of on water time you had, you can't feel bad at all. You have mastered the big nosedive. That's one thing that you guys have sort of probably leading the way, and we appreciate that because our logo is kind of boats doing nosedives, and we probably want to steal that one of you guys. That's I think that'll be good.
Add it to our
logo bank
of nosedives.
Yeah, and having the wind instruments and the goggles flying off. That'd be good. But just from that perspective, how you sailed the boat, like clearly with your background, with your match racing background and all the dinghy stuff you're doing, you were pretty comfortable positioning the boat on that start line. Actually, let me stop that. Race 1. Are we still talking to Canada? Do you remember race 1 where everybody was over the line and you were the only boat behind the line that didn't get a penalty, and then Canada just dicked around until sailed you into last before they bothered doing their penalty? They were ruthless.
Yeah, I think it gave us an excuse for why we messed up the next tack and fell off the foils, so it was good. We gave them plenty of heckle on the shore. So it's pretty nuts in the racing because, like, obviously you're doing, in the lighter conditions, you're doing everything you can to stay on the foils, and I think we watched it back and they sailed like 300 meters or 200 meters outside the boundary or something to stay foiling in the start.
Yeah.
And because in the start, if you sail outside the boundary, you don't get disqualified, or I think that's the way it works. But, like, in the race, you're only allowed to sail 85 meters outside the boundary before you get disqualified. And they've done that, came back in reaching, foiling, and rolled us off the start. And it was, got 3 penalties or whatever and just tacked straight through their gas and put it in the ocean. So, it's tough, but, we actually did screw up that tack too. So it's kind of on us.
But, are we going to, like, is the friendship with Canada over? That's like, as a nation, should we be heckling Canadians now when we see them? Like, it was pretty brutal.
Removing the North Australians.
That's right. And there's a lot of Canadians listening to this right now. So we just want them to express on your behalf how shitty we are about that one.
I feel like we already do give them plenty of heckles,
Okay.
so it's probably just
You're right, actually.
Oh, dear.
Who else did you find out there on the racetrack that you just continuously ran into type thing? Like, we get it in all regattas, like, oh, that bastard again or whatever. Was there someone that you're always, oh, here we go again?
Gonna be
Well, on that second day, it was certainly the Swedish. I mean, we had some actually really good races with them on the on the downwinds, and we'd like go into a Samo jibe and say, "All right, see you guys."
Nice.
That was really
Love the
noticeable,
banter.
actually, the Swedish thing.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and they were.
Well, they had the most Australian influence as well, right?
Yeah, that's right.
With Kyle and Bull Durham. I mean, so makes sense.
Yeah, and when the conditions got a bit more out of hand, that's when they sort of had that little upper hand, I guess, from just spending hours on the boats.
On the water, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that was really obvious. When you look at the results, I think the boys have both mentioned it. At the end, after the semis, it was basically, the top 4 teams were the teams that had boats, and then everyone else. Obviously 3 teams from the race teams missed out of the qualification, but then once you get into that final, it was just all about the fact that you'd had boats. Is it going to happen again? Like, has there been any talk about how successful this was or how valuable it was? Like, what's the vibe amongst you lot?
I think with the women's still to come, the women's event could be, it's going to be a lot bigger than the youth event. I think.
You reckon?
That's going to be I think that's going to be a really cool event, and that's kicking off in a couple of days. So I think after that, there'll be a good gauge of I'd have to I don't really know, but I'd say watching the racing, our racing was pretty cool to watch when I was watching the other pool race.
No question. And it raised a lot of eyebrows in the socials, and also to us directly, that it really changed up the entire festival, if you like, of the sailing that is the America's Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd love to see it happen again, because obviously, a lot of us won't be back for the youth America's Cups. We'll be too old, but for the next sort of set of sailors, young sailors in Australia, this was an awesome opportunity, and I'd love to see, it happen again. And
I'm going to go one step further, lads, and say, yeah, I reckon
Take a step, BP. Do it.
One step further. Yeah, one step further. We do have the youth, and I think we have the women's, but I think we should bring in the masters and grandmasters. Let's give it a crack.
Mate, fucking no chance on one of these boats.
Could you imagine it?
Yeah, you blokes would be white knuckling the wheel down with 45
Oh,
knots.
mate, give me a go.
No, I've got to say, I was doing the Maxi boat regatta last week, and everyone knew what was happening in the youths.
Yeah.
So once our race was over, everyone jumps onto their phone. Everyone knew what position everyone was in, who was winning the day.
You
So
go downstairs to the piano room.
just from no, not on this boat, but even from a general sailing point of view, it was first to the phone to check what was going on, who was winning. So I was plenty of interest. Super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty lucky to have the full broadcast team on it. I think because we just raced on opposite days or in the morning, we ended up with, the full stack. And I said coming into the regatta, personal goal, finish a race and chat to Glenn on the interview and be like, was going to see if he says, "Hi, Cole, it's Lenny here," but we never quite got to that point.
I love it.
Beauty.
So let's just, there's a lot of people listening who are never going to get the chance to sail one of these AC40s. We loved them. BP and I probably messaged each other a million times just talking about how much fun these things look like. How hard are they to sail? If you're a pretty handy sailor, say, how long does it take you to get acclimatized to it?
I think it's a hard question, because I think with the simulator hours you don't know whether you need 50 hours in the simulator or 500, because we did 400 or 500 hours in the simulator. So you don't know exactly how much is enough to be competent when you step into the boat, because we've only done, a whole lot of it. So I think the simulator is quite important to get in the boat and be good at, because then you know where all the buttons are, and you're not looking for a button or a toggle when you're sailing and looking down when you should be looking outboard. But, not to I think to trim the boat is being the trimmer is a little difficult. The driving sort of, you just hop, you can sort of hold and point and shoot to an extent.
If the boat's in balance, very easy to drive, but you know when it's not. Yeah.
Kind of bucks you off.
Yeah. I think the heel control of the boat is a very big deal. Like the heel range that these boats sail at, upwind and downwind, especially in waves when you can't hit the boat through the water, is not big. And to keep it in that heel range is reasonably difficult. You know, even the good teams find it difficult in the waves. So I'd say that's probably the hardest part of sailing. And like if you had, like you saw with the e-sailors, like they had two of the Team New Zealand youth boys trimming behind them, and they were all good in 8 or 9 knots. They sailed around the course with half a day's training, no worries. So I think in a sense they're quite easy boats to sail. You know, to drive it with experienced trimmer would be quite easy. To trim it with even with experienced drivers, if you were brand new, would be difficult. And I'd say any reasonable sailor with enough time would pick it up.
Yep.
So
talk me through the traveller control
and the cant. Who's doing the cant as well? That's what I want to trying to work that one out as well, boys.
Yeah. Well, so the trimmers with the traveller, essentially you've got a button panel for the trimmers, and you've got 8 buttons, and you control the Cunningham, the mast rotation, the sort of foot depth in the sail, and you can invert the mast and tap in and out of the main. And then you've got 2 toggles, which is your main sheet and your traveller. And so the traveller, obviously, you see it going nuts.
Going hammer and tongs, yeah.
Ideally, actually, you're not moving it. It's like any boat. The less is more a lot of the time, but especially when you're sailing in tough conditions, it's really easy to get out of balance. And as I said, like that heel control is super important, and that's sort of the biggest input you have on the heel control. So essentially you're always holding the traveller like in and out. You know, different people do it different ways. Like some people look at the instruments and look at the heel number and try and keep it within the range they want. I look at the bow and sort of gauge it off the water and trim that way, and look at the waves and gusts coming onto the boat. But there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. But that's essentially the biggest input you have in terms of the heel of the boat. And you see it going pretty nuts sometimes. But ideally, you're not moving it a whole heap, and you're keeping it in quite a small range, like any boat really. But and then I think Cole can talk about cant.
So it's sort of primarily controlled through maneuvers and stuff by the actually there's a lot of ways to do it, but the way we ended up running it was the leeward helm will be setting the settings for the foils, and because basically you can just look out of your cockpit and see where the foil is in the water. If you're too slow, you can't push the ride height or the cant too wide, because you just pierce the tip of the foil out of the water and just suck air down the whole thing basically. And then, so you're sort of playing on that. And then as the boat builds speed, you can, wind it up and fly higher and get it ripping. So that's kind of what you're doing. And then on the windward side, you've actually got quite a good bit of feel for the power. And so you can control from both sides if you like. And so Fergo and I got to a place where we would sort of like have the leeward person set it to like a baseline level or where they thought was good, and then the fine tuning as you go through pressure or whatever you're doing can be done by the windward person.
What about the?
Can a lot of that be done with helm as well? Can you sort of, when you're in sailing normal boats and you've got major gusts come on, you try and alleviate with feathering and that sort of stuff. Is that something you can sort of do, or is it typically all to do with the foils and the cant of the rig?
No, for sure you can do all that sort of stuff with the power, and like you don't need to move. You can sail like pretty good performance without moving it very much, but as you get more comfortable with the boat, you tend to move it around a bit more, and especially through the maneuvers, like as you're powering up out of the maneuvers, you swing the cant right under to sort of, so you need less riding moment and build the speed, and it goes out again. Like into the tacks and stuff, you can have it under if you just are not going to have that much power on the exit and balance it that way. But it was something that you kind of find the limit on, because it becomes a bit looser on the exit. If you have more power than you thought, it's pretty easy to just blow over and get leeward heel and do whatever. Yeah.
But by having more power, giving yourself more riding moment, does that relate directly to how much bigger your balls get as you come out of tax.
Yeah, well, the trimmers will complain if it's in the wrong spot. You know, they're like, "Nah, that's too much power for me, mate. I can't handle it."
Then you're like, here you go, Fergo. All yours, mate. Back.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a bit of that involved.
But if you come out overpowered, you're just going to ventilate the rudder, though, aren't you? That's what it looks like when you.
No, if you come out overpowered, you just get yelled at by the trimmer, basically.
Which is a good point as well, because it's a different type of sailing. It's a technique which is, obviously trust is huge on any boat, especially or any crude boat for that matter. It doesn't matter what boat it is. But this is completely different. You've got two helmsmen, and you're handing all that over that let's say you've just worked your ass off for that, that first part of the leg, and then you're handing the helm over, and you've got to trust that person, don't you? Because nothing worse than that person going backwards through the fleet.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I would say the hardest part for us, we never had any problem with just handing the keys over basically tack to tack, and felt comfortable saying no if you see something. And I'd say the hardest part is when you're both looking at different things that the other can't see and deciding which option is actually better, because if you can see both, it's pretty easy to be like, oh, that pressure's better. But when you're describing it to each other and you're going into a light patch and they're like, okay, it's getting light ahead. Is there pressure inside? And you look inside and go, oh, that looks light, but is it better than what they're seeing?
Yeah.
Kind of hard to know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You're talking 1 knot can be the difference or less. And then at that point, you're getting pretty fine tuned and you're like, oh, am I reading that correctly enough? And how do you put a number to that, or how do you gauge that?
You don't have screens with wind maps on it.
Sorry.
No, unfortunately not.
No, it looks like it from the outside because everyone's calling it so accurately. That's anyway. Sorry, BP, I spoke over.
I know. I was just going to say, it's Jay. You brought the point up, I think, last week about 1 knot, as you just said. Then that 1 knot, it makes a huge difference. I mean, it's X amount of knots of boat speed and X amount of degrees of angle. I mean, it's a huge thing to either win or lose.
Yeah, especially in the light air. Like in the light air, in 7 knots, you barely be able to do a maneuver, and in 8 knots, you're a lot more comfortable. Like it's
pretty good.
It's a massive thing in the light air. When it gets a bit windier, it's probably more about the phasing of the breeze, but especially in the light air, that looking for wind is quite difficult. And as Cole said, you'll be on the windward side and the speed's trending down, and you're like praying that the guy to leeward says there's good pressure inside, but he's got no idea what's happening on our side of it. And it's like, it's light everywhere. So you're just hoping for a gust to drive into or something to get out of the hole you're digging on that side.
Yeah, there was
sorry, Jordan, quick one. Obviously with the influence of who you had around the team, specifically talking about John Bertrand, he, very big on team building, culture, psychology, all that sort of stuff. Did Cole, did he make you and Fergo share rooms so you're literally living in each other's back pocket?
Max and I were sharing Fergo's. He's a loud sleeper. Actually, that earned him a nice room, private room, and he won out of that battle. Unfortunately, always the ones with the snoring or whatever, they get the win of the pick. No one wants to share with them.
Just
well, that's true. Roof. I've often woken up by myself.
Yeah, I was sleeping I woke up this morning at 6 o'clock and I took great pleasure in loudly getting out of bed because Fergo had been snoring all night.
Slam the door on the way out.
Yeah. Bastard.
Sorry.
No, that's cool. I was just going to say, we were talking about how you can't read. You have to rely on the bloke to leeward, and they don't see half the thing. And I was just saying, I noticed with the British team during the cup, the finals that we've been watching, there was a moment between Ben and Dylan that it was very clear that Ben was 100% comfortable in Dylan. There was, that the way they interacted, it was just like this complete trust. And I don't think all the teams have had that. And when we watch the main racing, so I was just wanted to emphasise that point. A bit lost now, but the thing I do want to ask is just around the dynamics of the boat. So one of the things is the pitch. Just quickly, is the pitch set by you guys, or is that the auto thing?
You're not trimming the rudder physically, but you are setting the attitude of the boat. So you put in a degree of pitch that you're targeting.
Yeah.
And so that range was anywhere from 0 to, 2.5 to 2.75.
Yeah.
And essentially, when you get bad waves, you kind of need to back off a little bit and put some more rudder in the water, and also avoid the bow, smoking the whole wave, and rather just have them slap sort of the bottom of the hull a little bit. Yeah,
because I was having a bit of banter backwards and forwards this week from Grant Rollison, who you probably know, you two, I would assume. But Rollo kept talking. We were talking about the look of the boats, comparing the 75 and the 40, and that with the 75, your jib's way back off the bow, right? Rig's right back in the boat. With the 40, everything's right to the nose. And I just wonder if the dynamics of those 40 is that they're pretty, they're pretty comfortable going nose down if you're not concentrating. Like your crashes, a classic example. Are they easy to put the nose in? I guess is what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, they're. I think a lot of it's the same in the 75s. From watching it, I assume like a lot of it's just balancing the sails with the foils, and it's really easy to get over trimmed or under trimmed on the sails, and that really affects how the boat's sort of balanced on the foil. And then you've got all the settings of the foil you've put in as well. So it's quite a balanced thing. Like if you're too loaded in the jib or too eased on the jib, and you essentially got no load in the front of the boat, or you're over trimmed on the main, it's like any boat. The balance gets really whacked really quickly, and you just start having the problem. And the hard part is when you're on the windward side of the boat, especially as a trimmer, like you can't really see what's happening with the jib either. So you're just trusting the jib's in a good spot, and the guy on the leeward side can only sort of they're trying to trim the jib and the rest for what they think's happening on the windward side, but you can't actually really see. So you're just sort of trimming it to a number and looking up at the jib and saying, oh, it looks pretty good. But a lot of the time
they look at the heel, primarily they're looking at because the sensation's a bit duller on the leeward side.
Yeah, essentially. So it's probably to answer your question, it's really easy to get the boat out of balance if you've got one of those three things out of sync, essentially, with the other two.
Yeah. I would have thought.
Then so you're out of sync. It's happened. I mean, it happens very quickly in the wavy conditions because the wave's throwing the boat around. Is it something that happens relatively quickly in terms of knowing what you've got to do? Obviously, as you spend more time on the boat, you would have got better and better at it. But there must have been times where you're going, holy shit, pull that on or ease this or do that, and it must have been pretty wild.
Yeah, if you're pushing the limits on the pitch or how much rudder you've got in the water, there's a little alarm that triggers if you get within 50 centimeters of the top of the surface with the rudder, and it basically trips them to zero, like so you're sailing with zero pitch again. And then but it's very easy to go straight past that limiter, and the rudder's already at basically doing as much downforce as it can. But as you saw, that's how we did it. But you can push the limit and trip that alarm off as you go as well.
It just sounds like so much fun. I figured with all the balance element, the helm, do you feel it in the helm? Like is the helm able to say, I need more of this or more of that? Does it work like that? It's just standard like on a normal boat?
Yeah, you can feel that stuff, but also in the waves, you kind of have to be comfortable with sailing a little bit out of where you'd like to. And for example, we're sailing with leeward heel on the wavy days just to try and keep the boat above the waves. And it's like not as comfortable to drive and not as comfortable feeling for anyone, I think. And your margin for error gets a lot smaller, but it's just what you have to do, I guess, to get over the waves.
Wow. Do you remember when you first got in them to go for your first sail? Do you remember that feeling?
I was going to ask that question myself.
Yeah. Cole and I actually, our first sail was so we were lucky enough that we came to Barcelona sort of a month before we actually came here to sail on the French boat, and we had a couple of training days with them, and we jumped on Cole and I's first day, and we'd watched the boys the day before sailing 8 or 9 knots, dead flat water, and they made it look easy. And we're like, okay, this is going to be cakewalk. And we turned it up and we rolled around the corner and we were backing the boat out, and it's 10 to 15 knots and huge sea state. And we were just
very confused sea state as well.
Confused sea state.
Typical.
Dead cross swell. It was,
Oh, it was, we made ourselves look a bit silly on day one.
I genuinely, like, we sort of got going, and at that point you're not like popping traditionally like how you would have expected. We're fully surfing down a wave and then like coming up on the foils and foiling over the other side of it. And we get up, and I sort of look over the side and looking down to a trough, and I'm like, oh my God, that is a long way down right now, like way more than I wanted it to be.
Wow.
As soon as the wave state gets up, you sort of, especially for the trimmers, because I look at the bow a lot to control, like to gauge where the heel is. And right next to the bow, you can see where the next wave is coming, and the valleys start getting real big, real quick. And sometimes you just pause and think for a second, and you're like, oh, if you end up down one of them, you're going to be in a world of pain.
Well, let's talk about that world of pain for a second, because it still is a topic of conversation. Yeah. When you put the nose in that day, what was the instant thought? Like, you knew it was going to happen, right? It's like,
well,
fuck, we're done.
That's the funny part. You don't know it. I didn't know it was going to. I was the one that was trimming, and I didn't know it was going to happen until it happened. Like, yeah, right. We'd essentially sailed all day. Yeah, like we'd sailed. We'd done 5 bearaways already on starboard, and we went for that one in the pre-start. And the funny part is a bit of a scoop for you guys, but on our comms, Fergo asked me, he goes, should we go for 1 or 2 boards here? And 2 boards is a lot, in a way it's safer because you put the second board in, a bit more stability. It can work as it can apply, essentially suck you back into the water as a bit of riding moment, that kind of thing. It's a bit safer. And he asked for 1 or 2 boards, and on the comms about 5 seconds before we pitch pole, it's me going, yep, 1 board's all good here. And then we bear away, got a bit too much leeward heel, and when you get the leeward heel and the rudder's close to the water, the rudder just comes out of the water. And then I literally, until we lost the rudder out of the water, I thought it was all good. And we lost the rudder out of the water, and the boat altitude sort of changes from this to really nose down really quick.
Down.
You got 1 second
and then you get momentum as well. The whole thing happens all at once. Yeah, right.
At that point, I think it was like mentally we'd gone from our L plates to our P plates. We're like, oh yeah, we're sweet. We can do this now. We're just doing a couple of times. And we're like, oh, come on, we got this covered. And then
indestructible.
Boom. So it's kind of like the first time you go for your driver's license, you don't actually get your driver's license. You got to go back to your L's, right?
Yeah, exactly. We got demoted. A league in that quite spectacularly.
Yeah, well, then we got to the top mark with no wind instruments, and I had our coach Harry's voice in my head. I could hear him yelling from, even though you can't actually hear him, I could hear him just knowing that we'd absolutely screwed it up in the pre-start. I could hear him, and we get to the top mark, and we go, 1 or 2 boards here, and I was like, guess we're going to go 2 boards.
I love it.
Tell me, well, again, thanks for the inspiration to give us another logo for Barkarati, the sailing podcast, with the nose down. But for both of you, both on and off the water, what are you going to take into your next campaigns? Is it, some inspiration? Is it different sailing techniques? Is it building team? What are you going to take away from this experience to basically put you on the podium for the future?
Yeah, it's interesting because we'll go back and sail the boats we sail, and a lot of the skills we've learned on the AC40 probably won't actually help us. It won't help Cole sail an Elliott 7 any faster, but it's gonna probably a lot of it's cool, and maybe it'll help. Obviously it's all learning. We're just getting better, so hopefully we take some of it back with us. But I'd say probably the biggest thing that I've learned, and I'm sure for a lot of others it'd be the same, is just operating in a team like this. We've got from basically after the selection process, we had 8 boys and 9 girls for over a year, basically operating together, and some of the best sailors in Australia. So it was pretty cool to sort of have that big team and be able to sort of lean on everyone and learn a bit or two from this person and then something else. And all of them are just so talented. And it was pretty cool just to sort of operate as a group and as a team for that extended period of time and learn essentially everything you could have off, some of the best sailors in the country. So that was pretty cool. And I think that's something that I'll take away and, take forward and yeah.
Also, we were essentially competing with each other for spots, and everyone was still like just working together because we had so much on trying to learn all the theories in the sim. Like we got to a place with all our foil controls and sail control theories But that was all basically through like trialing stuff in the simulator and then asking questions to anyone that will give an answer. But the thing with sailing a boat like this is no one ever puts numbers to it. You know, anyone that you ask, they're not giving you numbers. They can confirm or like reject theories that you have that you bring them. But, you know, you're sort of on your own a little bit with that when everyone's tied up in teams.
Mm.
I mean, and this makes me sound like a complete old prick, but having like done the campaign like Young Australia back in the day, the relationships that you guys would have with all the people that you were competing to get the positions on board, that's one of the coolest things, I reckon. Like even now walking around, you run into whomever it might be, I'll run into Jimmy or something. Like it's still like we were there together back then type thing. So I reckon that's something to not underestimate either.
Yeah, for sure. Within our team and with all the other teams as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're young blokes, right? You know, you've grown up with all the social media and phones and shit. I just wonder how much interaction were you getting from friends and family, and you know, you got someone like me who's a complete wanker and rings you up and tells you how to do it better. Were you getting any of that sort of crap going on, or?
Yeah, there were plenty of armchair experts, especially on the we couldn't jive. I had about 15 messages from different people with different theories on why, and it's just like I was on the boat and I don't even know why. Anyway, yeah, no, it was pretty good though. Like everyone, I think everyone was watching it, so it's a good thing. But yeah, it's honestly like there are so many different ways of sailing this boat as well. Like everyone, there's probably a bit of merit into basically anything anyone says, because I think even all the cup teams, when you watch them in Jeddah and Villanova, probably did it very differently across the 6 boats and had varying amount of success across them all. So
yeah.
What about from a cup team perspective? Have you been able to make friends in any of the teams? Like, have any of them said, "Yeah, come in and have a look at the boat," and any of that? Have you been able to sort of crack through a wall there, or are they all a bit tight still?
I think they're all pretty busy. I think right now, especially because we sort of we got back here right before the round robin started for the Challenger Series, and I think they're all pretty wrapped up in their own business at that point. Yeah. So not really yet. We got a little we get to see the boats on the water, and we had a line up with Prada one day on the water in the 75 and we're in the 40, like, oh, that's pretty close. But apart from that, it hasn't been. I think they're all pretty focused on trying to win the actual cup. So
oh yeah, but the team's out now. I thought you might be able to, go and have a bit of a look,
Yeah, I think the other thing is like everyone's kind of thinking there's a pretty good chance the 75 will stay in next time, and then so they're still staying a bit tight-lipped about it because they don't know what they want to keep secret.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty much part of the agreement. It is 75 for the next cup. If they all had to sign on to that. It's my memory. It's a long time ago, but yeah, I figured they'd be a little bit tight-lipped. But I thought maybe there'd be a little bit of opportunity. But if you do, just keep the secret.
I hope we do.
Yeah. Keep the phone recording and send it on through.
Yeah, if anyone wants to invite us into their base, feel free. We're available. So yeah,
I love it. And what about moments in the event itself? Like, do you have any like standout moments where you go, you know what, this is as good as it gets? Whether it was just 3 a.m. where you're celebrating having done this together, or it was on the boat, or was there any moment where you've just gone, yeah, this is cool?
Yeah, there's probably 2. Winning the last race of that semi-final series was pretty awesome because we'd had a pretty tough day.
Yep.
And I think if we'd just plugged in another 5th or 6th, we would have been pretty gutted. So to win the last race semi-final series and beat all the cup teams was pretty awesome. So that was one standout moment, and probably the other was I don't know if you guys saw, but we had every sort of evening 2 of us would go up on the stage at the main race village, and Jesse Chuk would be up there asking us a whole bunch of questions. And I think on the day that we lost the first 6 teams from the regatta, invited teams and where the cut was done basically, and the teams went through to the semi-final. Fergo was up on the stage, and we're all in the crowd, and there was 50 Aussies in the crowd cheering, and not a whole bunch of other people.
Right.
And the Dutch had been knocked out, and one of them had said, I think they got asked, how the rest of the invited team's going to go against the cup teams, and they said, they're going to get smoked. And all the Aussies in the crowd are booing and everything, and they pass the mic down to Fergo, and Fergo just turns around and goes, don't know about you, mate, but we're here to win. That was that absolute highlight, because it was there's 50, there's all the Aussies in the crowd waving flags and screaming and cheering, and that was a pretty cool moment. But.
I would say I'd nearly go the other end of the semi-finals day. Was my favorite was like race 1 or 2, where we probably sailed, like we didn't get out of the starting blocks amazingly, but we sailed a cleaner race, by the standards of our regatta. We're actually putting together pretty good races and then end up last. And it was like, okay, this is, proper tight racing. You're not going to get away with anything. And that was like, this is the potential of it. I think everyone crossed the finish line within like 30 seconds or something. And it was like, okay, yeah, you get bounced out once and then you're just getting, pinballed across the boundaries and you'll go to last. And that was probably my favorite moment, was being like, all right, we really need to lock in here if we want to, like, you can be in third and it's just nothing is guaranteed, or you can be in first and you just miss one cross or whatever and get bounced into the boundary and it's no good.
Yeah. We've obviously got the women starting next couple of days, and obviously you'll be there to support them. And but for you guys, has it been a bit of a whirlwind? I mean, it feels like a year ago you started, but it's just gone like that. I mean, have you tried to stop and think about how cool this really is?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Like the last year has been so slow. A year and a half has been like, we've been in the simulator in Sydney, like, this is getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day to drive into the city. It's like, it felt so long. And then this whole last month has just been an absolute whirlwind. It's happened so quickly. And, our regatta finished over a week ago now, and we're still, I don't think a lot of us have really just taken a minute yet. It hasn't quite settled in that we went and did that, and we, so it's in a way we see the girls going sailing, and we're just like, probably won't get sailing AC40 again. Like we sort of, I don't know. After we won the last race of the semi-final, and we sort of were sailing in, and we're just like, it sort of all dawned on us, and we're like, this is the last couple of minutes we got here. Like, let's pull the board up and go sailing. Like, I think that side of it hasn't quite settled in yet, how cool it was and how awesome it was to sail the boats. But it has been a bit of a whirlwind since we got here.
So what's the program now? You're sticking around till the end, or is that the plan?
Yeah, we're essentially shore crew now. So with the women's event, we're just going to be in there helping with all the setup and stuff. They did the same for us. You get off the water and 2 people need to go to media commitments and 2 other need to go to the stage, and there's stuff like that. And then the boats being so like technical, you need an hour of scrubbing it down inside, and that is now our job for the next week. So it's a bit of a bump down, unfortunately.
It's a terrible job, but
they did it for us.
So on the training days, we obviously did it ourselves, and it was the girls came and helped us out with that on the race day, so that was pretty good of them. So we're going to do the same for them.
Nice.
Right.
Unless you get sick and can't leave bed.
Yeah, exactly.
What about from that perspective for the women's team? Obviously, you guys have learnt the hard way a few things. So have you got some tips you've been able to pass on that you think will actually progress them a little quicker?
Yeah. Well, they've got the same coaches working with them that work with us. So they've got all the lessons real time that they can tell them in the moment as well. But yeah, we've definitely done our best to pass on all the learnings, and they were listening to our comms every day and watching back the video of an evening and all the rest, trying to get every bit they could. So hopefully they take away some of the lessons we learned. We learned some pretty harsh lessons on some of those days. So hopefully, in an ideal world, they take them and don't make the same mistakes and go even better than we did. So
Okay, there's a critical question that needs to be discussed here. And one, there's two parts to the question. So banter, just providing helpful input with your voice to other people, what we call banter, Australia's specialty. One, in the video room, were the young ladies that you were in your team, were they giving you any grief? Were they throwing banter at you? And two, on the race course, after racing, have you managed to practice your banter while you're out there? Like, did you have any targets?
Yeah, I think the girls are pretty good actually. They didn't really give us much heckle even after we'd put the yacht in the ocean every single jibe that day.
Yeah.
So, they didn't give us a lot of heckles. So fair play to them. But it's hard when you can't, because you got your headphones on and stuff. You can't actually chat on the water. It's not like you can yell at someone when they're coming on port that you're on starboard or anything. So it's a little hard on the water to do any actual heckling, especially when you're mic'd up as well. So anything you say, you've got to be
willing to wear on the broadcast.
You got to be willing to wear it on the broadcast as well. So it's on that front, probably not. But
our girls also had the jeopardy of they haven't raced yet, so anything they say can come back to bite them.
Yeah.
But now that we've finished, we know exactly what we've done and what we're comfortable saying.
That's right.
Oh, don't know how I would have done it, but wouldn't have done it like that.
We've had our listeners send us notes on how they think they could improve their cup. And one of the great suggestions that we've got is that there should be a banter button on the boat. So you can just hit the button and talk directly into one of the other boats and just give it to them, I just think that would add so much.
I like that idea. That's brilliant.
I think the problem with the banter button on these
that's
boats,
patented, by the way.
I think Ben wants one so he can say, "Do not jibe," scream it down the mic. A bit more intimidation like that would go well.
Yeah, you could hear him. You heard him the other day in the racing when Prada was driving across the bow of Ineos and they spun up inside, and both Dylan and Ben are screaming at them, but in reality, all they're doing is screaming into their microphone, which
screaming at each other, essentially.
Because you can't actually yell at the guy that's trying to jibe inside you in the traditional sense. So that would be a good option. It's a little tap into their comm system to give them a bit of heckle. But the problem on these boats is you give someone a bit of heckle and then probably screw up what you're doing because you're racing on a knife's edge the whole time. So
that's fantastic.
Be bloody funny though.
It'd be so much fun, wouldn't it? It's just so much fun. Like a perfect example of this, just how Ashby's commentating. Like he would have been told to talk a certain way, and he's just said, "Nah, I'm doing it the Aussie way," and it's worked. Like it just works so beautifully, and that sort of laconic delivery, which sailors do so well across all nations. It would just add. It would add so much to the coverage. I reckon it would be hilarious.
Yeah. It's pretty funny when he says like, "Oh, that," and he'll say a trimmer, like a starboard trimmer, a port trimmer, or a driver, and you get called out. You just don't want that to be happening to you. And I haven't seen the broadcast, but I'm sure we've made it in there with a few.
Yeah, he was pretty much. He was he couldn't say. They're not allowed to be biased, but he was so hopeful for you blokes. It was really obvious, like especially when he was sort of. It was a couple of times he mentioned, "Don't you curse them? Don't curse them." Like it was just,
Glenn had a lot of nice words to say to us. We ran into him a couple of times while we were here, and he's a great man. He's got so much knowledge as well. Wish we could tap into it a bit more, but he's a man in demand, obviously. So, yeah.
Still my best comment from him though, probably the second best commentator's comment after yours, Jordan, of course, was the. Glenn knows enough Italian to get out of trouble, but during the round robin, the Prada were coming around the top mark and did a little spin out in the rudder, and he's like, "Cazzo!"
Well, he had one in the he had one. What did he say? I think someone had half capsized one of the 40s, was just heeled over, and he said something about touching cloth. Like, the boys here touching some cloth.
Oh, dear.
Oh, beauty.
I love it.
Beauty.
Well, mate, boys, I think that's us. I reckon we've had a really good conversation. It's been an absolute pearl. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. And thanks for getting up on your day off at the wee hours of the morning, 3 hours before your wake up time. Your mum would be proud, Max.
Oh, thank you. The last week has been a day off every day. It's felt like, so it's all right.
Oh, the only other thing I think we need to say is to just pass, like we're supposed to be. Actually, we don't have to be impartial. Jesus, we're our own company. Just pass on to the Australian women's team. A lot of love from us, and wishing all the best. And yeah, well done. You guys did good. We were really happy with you. I mean, day two, when you're sort of nosediving into everything, like I just kept telling my friends when they asked me, I said, there's a lot of plastic bags on the course. They've been catching plastic bags, But,
well, yeah, we actually did catch a plastic bag on the practice day, so we did have an excuse for that one. But yeah, I think we would just pretend there were a few banana peels on the race.
I think they just finished those races at the top gate, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just cruising down.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome. You've waved the flag. Should be super proud. All the best to everyone else. Enjoy Barcelona.
Yep.
well done. Have fun.
Cheers.
Good fun discussion, boys. I really enjoyed that one. Two very likeable lads. I thought it was a ton of fun. I think they might be thinking, oh, yeah, we can slack off. But now that they're going to have to do all the work for the women's team after they come in off the water, their hangovers might be getting to them, boys.
Well, before we actually chat about that, I mean, obviously some smart young fellas right there. Imagine us being interviewed at 20 years old, just blah, 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 blah. Just all over the joint.
At 6 o'clock in the morning in Spain time.
Exactly. But look, the time of their life, obviously the sailing is a big part of it, but I think just their whole experience, one of the questions I asked, and also being surrounded by who they are being surrounded with, and then also to link that in with the Women's America's Cup as well, is like it's something that, will never be repeated like as the inaugural part of it, the Cup. Hopefully we do see this in the future, but bloody good on them. Good guys.
I can't see it not being there, but I'll tell you what, it must have been, like we did touched on it a bit, how it would have been a whirlwind of an experience. And he did say that the last year has been relatively monotonous. Yeah, the room of winning appliances in Rosebery, Sydney, but the Waterloo, Sydney, but the that week of racing would have been like a blur.
I'll tell you
How
what's
much fun.
actually more of a blur is their weeks that they're currently taking part in now. Like you say, Jordan, we interviewed them at 6 a.m. and it was in Barcelona. There's not many people up at that time, let me tell you.
No, there's not.
So
it's very few. Well, there's a few going to bed. That's all I'll say.
They're on their way home. It's actually a funny sight.
Enjoying the hospitality. So good on them.
No, all very cool. Yeah, but we do have a suggestion that could make their life a little bit easier. So, boys, as you're trying to recover in the morning, remember Radix Nutrition. If you throw a bit of the Radix Nutrition down your gob, you will be more than happy with the outcome, because it's nutrition for everybody. Whether your mission is to crush your fitness goals, conquer a new challenge, or simply fuel your everyday life, got you covered.
Or to counteract the ham on and the Australia Dams.
Give you energy to get through the day to do it all again.
I've always had this theory. So go to Radix Nutrition and just check out their website, and you can get an order in, obviously, with the Hobart coming up. So a really good time to jump onto it. The team here in Australia are ready to support you super quick. Use the code BARKER80, one word, in the discount code to get a discount on us. It's just reminded me, boys, I've always had this theory that whenever you upchuck, everyone in Australia says it's carrots, right? And I reckon it depends on what country you're in. It doesn't matter if you've never eaten the food, you still will throw it up. So in sort of South, in America, down the southern sides, it's always red beans. It's red beans, kidney beans, like you've eaten Mexican. And
sorry, I thought it was ribs.
Yeah. In Spain, it's ham on. If you have a chuck, it's always going to be ham on that comes up.
Don't worry. We all remember that night you went out with Fletcher and had the ham on.
Anyway. Oh, dear. A couple of events. Well, there's plenty happening. Obviously, the Women's America's Cup's underway as we speak. That was about to start as we were supposed to record this. The IQ Fall Euros are on 4 to 11 October in Cagliari, Boeto Beach. I think there's a few others on. The ORC Worlds are on at the moment, I think.
ORC Worlds have been complete. That'll be coming up. Some results in hot time.
Cool. So there's a bit going on. Sail Paradise is completed, so we'll chat about that too. So let's roll into Jack Lloyd Listener of the Week. And also we'll announce the special Listener of the Month for the Cup discussion, what you do with your own Cup team.
Bravo.
Hasn't that created some bloody interest?
Plenty of correspondence.
It has. So there's been a whole heap of different things come in through the week. The only one that I wanted to pull up was Dave Balesti, and because I have been away, I've lost the email. I'm just madly trying to find it. I've got it. Right. Teams should be nationally based. A team will qualify to represent its nation by winning an e-sailing series on the Cup simulator. There will be regional qualifiers in North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australasia, and Wicklow Sailing Club.
Of course. How can we forget old Wicklow?
We're going to do that. We're going to do Des Moines Sailing Club.
These will again be held in a simulator with the winning nations qualifying to race the AC40s. The host nation will be the victor of the previous cup, and they may elect to have the race in a country of their choice. There will be a maximum of 50 hours boat on the water practice. 5 fleet races with 1 to 5 points. 1 round an island of 600 nautical mile distance with 1 to 9 points. Lowest 2 match for the race for the cup. Jeopardy equals entertainment equals views equals money. What do you reckon, boys?
Well, I like all of that except the 600-mile part.
Okay, talk about it.
Well, I like the incorporation of the E series into it for selection because it's basically what they did anyway, right?
Yeah.
If you look at how the teams got selected into the the invited six, they were basically on simulators, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's not a bad thing. I think it's quite cool to bring the E series as a pathway.
And how do you feel about Wicklow having their own standalone qualification?
Well, as I said, they have to go extend to Des Moines Sailing Club, obviously.
Goes without saying, of course.
No, it's a good email, mate. It come in hot. Like I actually wrote a note about this for the overall thing for the month, and coming in hot was Dave Balesti in my notes. We did get a lot of emails about Dave A being a legend, which was really nice. Dave joined us.
Well deserved.
Yeah,
well deserved.
He's a good man. Winner for the month, though. We are going to make the announcement, and I've made the call, and I'm willing to be disputed by you boys if I've got it wrong. But I am suggesting we go with Lawson Shaw. He sent a note on the 13th of September, just on a month ago, talking about smaller boats, 50 to 60 foot range, which we both agreed. Happy with that. So he was what the most of the people wanted. He did actually throw in the Pursuit course and the Barcarati barge, which was nice, played up. But his winning point, I think that makes it soar above everyone else, was the addition of the banter button on the boats. I think that is a true and in-depth understanding of what the Cup should be about. I think it's a genius call. What do you guys think? I think it should be Lawson.
Well, yeah, I think. Sorry, Bitey, just quickly. I think the call for a smaller boat across the board has been relatively unanimous. There's been a lot of calls for this across the board, so I think that sort of puts him on par. But I agree. Your point about the banter, that's just one above.
One above the banter button. Banter button on boats. It's a triple B threat.
Banter button on boats. Oh, there you go. That's a commentator's nightmare right there. But I don't disagree. I think it's such a good thing, and not only for us as the viewers and listeners, in the sense that as we see it as a viewer at the moment, we get the commentary at the moment from the commentators. We get the discussion between the helms people. But imagine that banter button being pressed, and then it opens up all headphones to everyone, including ourselves.
Yep.
So, you can imagine it. Now, it probably isn't one for a podcast, but imagine the Kiwis as they're going past. It's just a little nod of
the banter button. It's like those really old-fashioned...
The deer nod. The deer nod.
Remember the old cars before the indicators came out? You used to have a little thing on the side of the car that you put in.
It's called a Land Rover Series 1, my friend.
You pull the handle down and the hand would
it.
come out to indicate you're turning. You could get a little head that just nods on the Kiwis. They could just have a little... This head.
I can't wait to see the bobble.
Put a little bobble doll on the dashboard.
The bobble on the
doll.
back of the Kiwi boat. And it's not the head going, 360 degrees. It's just a nod.
I could see the Kiwi team are listening to this right now going, oh, yes, we're going to make that.
It's like a little model.
Could you imagine it if they get towed out one day and there's the Kiwi bobble?
It's like a little model of Burling, the bobblehead, but it's just the nod, chin up.
Yeah, love it.
Oh, dear.
Okay. Well, what do you reckon?
While we're changing the laws to the America's Cup, it should be illegal for the Kiwis to sail without that right now. Like, it is such a good thing. They should get a DSQ. Balls. Can you imagine?
This is the umpire, Richard Slater. DSQ for not having a bobble on board.
That was too funny.
Yeah.
Because I do remember I was thinking merch for a while there when we're talking the banter button. Because I remember somebody, I can't remember, it was ages ago. It was a wonderful submission, and I've completely forgotten who did it. I'll find it. When we're talking about
T-shirt.
Reverse curse.
That's the banter button.
Yeah. He sent in a reverse curse, a whole design for us, which was really cool. And we probably will use it when we think about it. But then the banter button, you could have Barcarati and then just a picture of a button, banter button.
Banter button.
You'd be walking down the yacht club, someone taps you on your button on your chest.
Banter button powered by Barcarati.
But now we've got a bobblehead thing.
We could add it to the bobble.
Oh, dear. And I know somebody out there will just go straight to one of those bobblehead sites, send some photos of Pete Burling in and just do it. It's just too funny.
Just make it happen.
But the Kiwi, our friends in the team, you're listening?
Who said we don't give back to yachting?
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing.
Anyway, Lawson Shaw, congratulations, mate. Banter button, love it.
I think it's voted.
Yeah. I love how a conversation went from a button to a bobblehead. The banter button on the boat becomes the bobblehead on the boat. It's just brilliant.
Burling bobblehead.
The
bobblehead. Good old fashioned BBH.
Nothing like a bit of BBH and some cup banter.
It's hot time with Bice.
Got to say, Bice, just before you jump in there, mate, it's, the three of us together, it works a lot better, doesn't it? Like, just straight in, everyone's bouncing off each other. It's good.
I've missed it, boys.
Missed it.
Yeah. And specifically...
It's been lonely. It's been lonely in the studio, hasn't it, Jeff?
Believe me, I've had my hot time tracksuit pants on. Leisure pants, for that matter.
Travel pants.
That's it. The travel pants.
Barcarati travel pants.
We come up with some merch.
Where do we start, boys? Why don't we just kind of do a bit quick round the grounds and then finish up with the cup and what we've observed.
Yeah. Cool.
So just quick one, IRC Worlds has taken place in Newport, Rhode Island. Idyllic conditions. Won't go through all the winners, but, at the top of their class was Fox, Interlodge 44 with the did very well. The Wind Whisper 44 as well. Then Vespa also in the maxi class. Moving across to the Mediterranean, Saint Tropez, Lavoie, Saint Tropez. Again, so many classes. I'm not going. The winner was Rosé. Let's just say that. Yep. Rosé down at Mills, and if you're lucky enough, you can enjoy a few dozen bottles of that. And for those that were there and experienced Mills and Rosé, you know what I'm talking about. So, and that's not a boat's name. Put it that way. What else have we got happening out there? The offshore double-handed.
Yeah.
Has taken place. BP, is that kind of in your wheelhouse? Let's say.
It is a bit. It is a bit. Obviously, the Sunfast 30 One Design. I'm not going to say debacle, but no, the Sunfast 30 boat was used for that this year. It's been a fantastic turnout. And congrats go out to Maggie Adamson and Cal Finlayson from GBR. Took it out in the last race of the series.
Yeah,
so
nice.
Gone to GBR. It's super cool. Lots of countries represented. One Design. It's a great idea. Hope it can continue.
Yeah, no,
especially in an X2. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah. It was interesting because there was, eliminations down to the final 5, and then so it's a 151-mile race out of the Lorient, and there were 4 boats right together. So they had conditions sort of 0 to 30 knots basically, and coming into the finish, there were 4 boats pretty much right next to each other, and Maggie and Cal, instead of flying the kite, went to a code 0. And
stayed into the shore.
Yeah, that's it. And because of that, they got that. I think they won by like a minute. So
it was super close. I mean, the boats are, it's an ideal platform.
Imagine how exhausted you'd be.
Speaking honestly about it. So yeah,
nice,
very cool, very cool.
What else we got on board? J24 Worlds.
It's always the J24 Worlds.
Yeah, it's always another one.
Mate, down at the squadron, it was the J24 Worlds last weekend at the SA Women's Keelboat Regatta. It's been running one. So the Honey Badger team, a USA team from Rochester Yacht Club, took the win pretty comfortably there. 28 points against 51 in second for the no-named team from the Rochester Canoe Club. So Rochester Yacht Club beating out the Rochester Canoe Club. Probably should use J24 instead of a canoe, but interesting, the battle there. So I assume they're pretty good. And then a couple of Japanese crews. So Gecko Diana into third in that situation there. So Japanese teams. But J24 is still going. None of them sunk from what I've heard, which is unusual. So congratulations. Can I say that? Is that too far?
Yeah.
Oh, bravo.
Getting out in the water. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, just heading down to my local Cruising Yacht Club, South Australia. Yeah. The SA Women's Keelboat Regatta took place.
Oh, yeah?
I think I mentioned this before, like over the years. I was at one of the presentations maybe a year or two ago, and these ladies, have put a complete new spin on the way regattas should be enjoyed. It was absolutely one of the best vibes I'd ever come across. So
the women do it
let's
better.
all hope that continues.
Yep, I agree.
Very good.
Quick shout out to Div 1, Rock Salt and Outrageous were equal first, with Rock Salt taking it out with Marianne Harvey. Div 2, Sophie Davidson on high. Div 3, As You Wish, Jackie Dawson, and in the Elliott Sevens, Kirsten Norris took that out. So well done to all involved. Looking forward to seeing the full report from the regatta. But it's a really
cool.
good one.
Our friends at Southport Yacht Club have hosted their Sail Paradise Regatta, so that's pretty much stabilised into this time of year now, early October. So you can take your time heading back from Hamo or early race week and join into that. So that's been run and won. Bit of swimming out in the middle of the ocean with whales took place yesterday rather than all sailing. It was a long weekend up here, very light winds for them. In the Div 1, Black Diamond took the win from Aramex and Strata Care Racing Flyaway. And then in the Div 2s, Let's Get It On Philippi, and then 38 and Touche were the top threes in that one. Congratulations and good luck with Sail Paradise. That team, that one sort of taken off. There's one. Have you got any more, Bice? I don't want to step on you.
Well, yeah, I've only got
before the
basically
cup?
we're going to move. Well, Sail GP, of course.
Yes,
we've got a bit of news this week. We
Yeah,
see
big
Giles
news here, big news.
from
Yes.
Emirates Ineos, from Ineos joining as skipper for the
Yep.
Canadian Sail GP team.
There's some news. There's some stuff happening there.
Wow.
So, is this a trade? Like, are we talking trades between teams here?
Yep.
And Emirates GBR actually get a gain out of this?
They got money out of it. They got paid a transfer. So there's a couple of things that have happened. First off, remember Canada wasn't guaranteed a place. So they've got a new owner, Greg Bailey, I think. So he's biotech.
Grego.
Yeah, Grego. Yeah, the Bale Dog. So good on you, Dr. Bale Dog. Bought the Canadian team, which is great. That is a big deal. So that means there's less teams available. Remember, there's one of them going because there's not enough boats. The fact that Giles is transferred across, that's a big question. I have heard that he got the British team got paid a transfer fee, and I think that's what you're alluding to, boys.
Oh, yes. Yep. Affirmative.
Yep. So that's a big step up that they're actually paying a transfer fee. Giles does have a Canadian passport, so under the rules with Sail GP, they get a few years. When you're a new team, you don't have to have. I think you can sail with two that aren't your country, but initially, when you start up, some of the teams can start with more
than that.
non-locals. So that probably played into it. Our mate Phil Robertson, who we love, he's a really nice guy. He really is well respected in that Canadian team. The sailors love him when you listen to them on the boats, because I do. That's one of the things I get to do. The way he operates on the water and talks amongst that team is really cool. They have a lot of fun on that boat. So to see Phil out, and Nathan Outridge, of course, is out as well. We've lost a few really talented bodies. We will see the Italian team coming in, and we've got the Brazilian team coming in, and that sparks a question because, of course, with Brazil coming in, Martine Grail is going to be skippering the Brazilian team.
Absolutely.
Which is great. I was talking to Martine, and she said she just wants it to settle down, then she'll join us on the show. So the question I want to throw out there, who's going to steer the Canadian, the UK boat this season?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty clear to me. There's probably only one or two teams that Phil Robertson hasn't joined, and that one would be the UK.
That would be funny. That would be funny. BP, you got any views, bud? We may have lost BP. We may
have lost him.
Yeah. Okay. How about this?
All right.
I got a proposal. Hannah Mills.
Do tell.
Hannah Mills.
Yeah. Yep.
Why not? I would be very surprised if they don't give her a real close look. Obviously, it could be Dylan. He could come back in after he did season 1 in Sail GP, but I'd be very surprised if they didn't go with Hannah Mills.
Yeah. Copy.
It's now that you've got Martine and Hannah, it's a no-brainer. Cool. I hope BP can come back in, but that was it. Just wanted to say, so Sail GP kicks off in Dubai in November, assuming things settle down in that area, but hopefully everything's okay. And I am scheduled to be there, so we'll be able to get some insights.
Nice. So before we talk about the big dance, that being the 37th America's Cup, just let's touch on the Women's America's Cup, the huge Women's America's Cup, which is currently underway.
Yep.
At time of recording in Group B, we see Dutch ahead of the Spanish, ahead of the Aussies.
Yep.
With Swedes, Canadians, and German. So that's, and at the top of the leaderboard, that's 27 versus 24 versus 23. So
yep,
pretty tight.
Yep.
In what do we got in the Group A, Jordan Spencer? I've just lost that.
Well, so that Group A, obviously New Zealand.
Group A being the teams.
Yep, the teams.
Of course. Yep.
I haven't got the results. I can find the results for you too. But we had.
Well, it doesn't matter because that's going to change today by the time people listen.
Well, Italy were the standout, and then GBR. Okay, so
yeah.
Italy and GBR were the standouts, and I'm just trying to remember who was in third. France had a flash. The Swiss had a flash. I don't think the US were getting anywhere close. New Zealand might. They had a couple of bad ones as well, but. In terms of, we can look it up while we're doing that, but the Italians looked really quick. I don't know if you watched
slick.
It close.
Super slick.
They were so quick. The B group was hilarious because there was so much. They were laughing and having so much fun on the boat, which I really, really enjoyed. We're only halfway through the races. So the current standings is Emirates Team New Zealand. So it's 33 points to Italy. The UK team, 29 points. Then Emirates Team New Zealand is 18 with Alinghi Red Bull in 15 behind. So so that's the standings. So 4 races, both series got delayed last night. Looking pretty good. But enjoying it. There's been some good racing. There's been some sort of ugly stuff, but, it's great fun watching. Absolutely great fun.
Yeah. So now we're on to the big dance.
Oh, yes.
Gents. Well, there you have it. We have the Louis Vuitton Cup final has been run and won by Ineos.
Wow. How good.
Simply fascinating. I've got to say,
that's one good word for it.
Witness it and see it and what they've done, and probably turnaround's probably not the right word, but to see where they were in the round robins and some of the races that they were getting beaten in, to see what they've done is astonishing, and it's
brilliant.
Complete hats off to the team.
100%. 100%.
I will say I was fortunate enough to, just some of my own views here, fortunate enough to get a tour of inside their base last week, and it is astounding. It truly is something that replicates a hit for Formula One. And that's obviously got the Mercedes bit rubbing off, which has its ups and downs. But, the fact that the boat's super reliable, the fact that they know how to make the boat go fast. I did hear a rumour prior to the round robin, they made a small change, which caused them to slow down a little bit. But then they slowly just kept chipping away and basically got the boat fully up to pace. Of which, the paid dividends, and they've stepped away with the first time in 63 years or something like that. That the UK are within going to be fighting for the America's Cup.
Cannot wait.
And I mean, the Italian boat looked amazing. We all thought the Italian boat was going to win. I think we were sort of marginal. We knew conditions would determine it a bit, but it didn't end up playing like that. Obviously, the Italians had a little bit of bad luck with some breakage, so I had to carry that. But then the quality of the sailing, I think, from the British team really stood out. And an example of that was, remember race 4, we had the penalty, there was that jibe in the start box where the Italians...
where the Italians were well in the right, 100%.
So the Italians were on port, and then the Poms coming in on starboard, and then they jibed right in the water of the Poms, and the umpire said no penalty. apparently in the laws with the America's Cup, the law says that it doesn't need the main to jibe over. It's a case of what the angle is, sailing against the wind. So the umpire can see that the Italian boat was technically on the other jibe, even though the sails were on the opposite side. And therefore, in that ruling, the UK boat was at risk of being in charge, that they were going to get penalised because they suddenly had become windward boat. But then you've got to give room.
Well, no, port starboard situation, because both were on port, and then the Italians jibe onto starboard, so it turns into a port starboard.
Yeah.
But they were managed to keep clear, so well done for
engaging
the Poms for keeping clear. And as for all our listeners out there, despite the actual post coming from Bar Karate, not all members of Bar Karate agreed with that particular post.
Hey, I nearly put it on somebody else's page. I thought, you know what, let's throw this on ours because controversy gets a response.
I've got to say, she had some comments.
I've got to say, talk about controversy. I've had a few back and forths with a few people in the UK about the mention of a tank. Looking like a tank. It's been huge.
Yeah.
So it's been non-stop.
Bloody fast tank is all I'm going to say. She's
world's fastest tank.
She's the most glamour tank on the planet. She's on fire.
Glamour tank.
Glamour tank.
Just stepping back, boys.
It's a GT tank.
As we head off on a little tangent, they definitely can't take anything away from the Italians.
No.
I mean,
that was great.
Did it with grace, elegance, looked bloody good. And just got a bit rattled those last couple of days. Especially after the big nosedive. The next day they went out and it was quite breezy and bumpy. They looked a little unstable. Not saying that the nosedive or anything had anything to do with it. But, it was pretty, an honour to I was actually in Barcelona throughout the whole thing. So it was bloody good to watch. Went to the dock out show of the Italians.
Saw that.
Which was super cool. As the sailors come out, they play their own songs. A bit of Pearl Jam, of course, for our Italian friend. A bit of Land Down Under for Jimmy, of course. And then the world's biggest Italian flag. So behind, but super cool.
So I do want to. I'm interested. I've got a couple of questions for you, boys. So we saw that race 4, that incident pre-start, and then I think there was another one as well during that race. Race 5, the Poms sailed completely differently. And I'm interested in, I reckon the coach and the leadership team made a conscious decision, and I think it was a spot-on decision where they just said, okay, let's just disengage a little bit and sail the shit out of our boat, because they didn't slam a lot of tight covers for the next few races, and they just sailed clear and sailed the boats, and the boats went really, they were equal. So if they could just pick shifts and stuff like that, when you coach in match racing, you have to sort of understand what the umpires are going to do, and sometimes you're better off if you're sailing well, just separate, don't worry about the umpires and just sail the boat. And that's what I think the coach did in that team, which I reckon was just exactly the right response. So it was pretty good. I did notice, and I wondered if you guys picked up on this one, that in that rough weather we got a few days of really rough weather. The Poms were going really well downhill in that rough stuff, but they also seemed to be able to turn down in a tighter turn off the mark when they bore away,
When they excel to 55 knots.
Yeah. And so they were making
acceleration.
They were making like 100 meters on turn downs. I sort of noticed. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. So I wonder if the boat is actually a little bit easier to steer. It was a little bit easier to steer, but obviously it's irrelevant now.
Which comes back to our discussion a few weeks ago with Mozzie Sales talking about the rudder position. And there's a whole heap of things, isn't there?
Yeah. So you were right. Race 7, the Italians just had that lose the rudder and a big nosedive with the damage. That was pretty amazing. But yeah, I had the Poms engaging less and minimising manoeuvres. They really made a conscious decision about that and just sailed their boats. And it looked like, particularly in choppy seas, they were really quick. They weren't any slower, I thought. They were marginal, but it was just great watching. You know how good it was, this whole Cup? None of us have watched any of the old team racing that was on last week.
What racing? What? That's pretty cool, eh?
It's super cool. So the question then becomes, I mean,
what are the Kiwis going to break out?
This is going to be...
What happens now? This is the beauty of it. This is the beauty of it, because there was no question that we all thought that the Italians were just going to be that a little bit too strong, but the Poms have come out and done this. But they kind of thrown a spanner in the works for us, because, I mean, we all, it was, But anyway, the point is now...
How close was the racing?
Yeah, that's my point.
No, the boats were very evenly matched.
Oh, and New Zealand lost a couple of races in the in round robin. Yeah. So it's right there.
I'll tell you what, there were some naysayers at the start. We weren't. We were into it, but there were some naysayers saying, not great. These boats, bullshit. We're getting the best sailing ever. It's amazing. It is amazing. I'd like wider courses for more strategy stuff, but who cares what I want? So, but I
think this type of sailing. It's just relentless in the sense that if you make one mistake, you're out the back door.
That's the big one.
Whereas
that's the difference we're seeing.
Call it a whatever J24, a version 5. A small mistake you can probably recover from, but there's no recovery here.
Yeah. No, it's amazing.
So it's precision
Such
sailing.
Perfect sailing going on, isn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
So,
what has been incredible this week, just while we're talking Cup, is Jody, our great friend Jody Shields, has put a few hilarious messages out there. One of just talking about his tips and how bad he got it, and he used the F word so much that there's no way we can even mention the message. It was just hilarious. And then the one he put on the Facebook group.
The AC37 fans page.
Yeah. It's wondering how much influence that fencing they've put around the course will have on the wind and the sailing.
and how if they don't get the lines caught up in their rudders.
Yeah, and there's people responding going, "You idiot."
I think you'll find it's digital. Oh, really? Okay, thanks.
I was wondering if they towed it out there each morning.
Yeah, how do they keep changing the images on it?
Or was it just a big sort of like square that they tow around and leave it out there?
Oh, it was funny. So funny, and it's just like genuine responses from people. It's just brilliant.
Yeah,
just brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good. Look, good on you, Jody.
Loving the Cup. Like I said, I'll be back there next week. It could be 4-0 by the time I arrive back. It could be 2-all, 3-2, 3-1. Do you the math, boss? Good on you, idiot. So let's see. Hey, exciting.
Yep.
And just one thing to add. The last regatta I did was in Barcelona as part of the Maxis on Galatea. The venue, I'm not sure I can express how good the venue is.
Yeah.
We don't see it throughout the footage, but the marinas, the whole beach precinct along the front there, that gives you some viewing, the different experience areas, the bases is phenomenal. I'm not sure where you'd find somewhere in this day and age that could actually cater for how big the actual event is, not to mention how cool the city is. So, bravo, Barcelona.
Becoming very experienced, the Spanish for this sort of thing, so it's good.
Cool.
Super cool. They're just missing the barge.
The Barcarati barge.
There was, I must admit, I was just walking down in the Port Val, is called, the big marina there, where people like oh God, lost his name, owner of Ineos, Ratcliffe. Jesus, good on me. There was a spare berth next to his big powerboat of how big that is, 300, 400 feet or so. Perfect position for the barge, the Barcarati barge.
It's
What do you
obvious. The Poms will have us. The Poms will have us. We'll be good. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think Goobs gave us a call out on the official Cup podcast.
He did.
So, yeah. Thanks for that, Goobs. Beyond that, good luck. Have fun, everyone. Good luck with everyone in the Cup. I was away with my bride on the weekend, as I said. She was roaming around at night time in her the new Barkarati hoodie, and she looked good. She looked good.
You look good.
It's a bloody nice hoodie. I just said to her, we were out sitting on the beach with a couple of friends and drinking some wine, and I said, wow, that's a good-looking hoodie you're wearing there, darling. So, yeah.
How many we got left, by the way? Probably not many now, so get in quick, listeners.
We got like we got a lot of extra larges. We're good there, and mediums and stuff like that. So yeah, just jump on board quick. They're glamour.
Barkarati.com. Check it out.
And one day the sun shirts will come into play.
One day. We're just waiting for the sun to come out.
Now we've got all the other shirts and bobbleheads we've got to think about. But anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoy it. Remember to send in for Vycobi for the listener of the month. Send in your emails to cheers@barkarati.com. Just tell us anything that's on your mind. And jump onto Radix Nutrition. Compile your discount nutrition for the Hobart using the discount code Barkarati. That's it, boys. It's been good fun. Absolute cracker.
Nice.
Sorry it's late, everyone.
Next week.
Yep, apologies for the lateness, people, but there's a life outside of Barkarati sometimes, of which we just have to succumb to, but not much of a life. Put it that way.
See you later, everyone.